Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's been a while since we did one of these, so it's good to be able to get one in. We tried to get one in before Christmas, but we just couldn't fit dates, so hopefully the wait's been worth it. Tonight's one is a session which is my little pipe project at the moment, which I have to say, which is, I think this area of the game is more important, nearly more important, than any other part of the game. Tonight's talk is all about how you can take what you've got now and shoot much, much better scores without changing virtually anything. It's just understanding what you're doing, how you can use that and play according to that. The bottom line of golf we've got to try and work out is how do we get the best out of you, and then if you want to develop and work, for instance, come to us and do what we can do that, but you should be able to all score better than you currently do with your swing as is currently at this moment in time. So that's what tonight's is about. So I'll come to this in a second. But first of all, I'd just like to say, it's an easy game, I don't know what so first of all, you probably all now met Chris, but obviously Chris has been with us for a couple of 3 months. I just thought I would take some pressure off Chris because he's never done anything like this before, so he's probably like, please don't say anything. But obviously it's a different thing doing it in front of a lot of people rather than just one-on-one, so he coaches regularly but not in a big group situation like this, so I just thought I'd say, and also welcome to dogs from everyone here.
Thanks to everybody else.
As usual, please feel free at any time to ask any questions, golf-related questions. But if you don't understand anything, I always say if you don't understand it, there's a guarantee somebody else doesn't understand it. So please feel free to just pipe up and say, can you please explain that a little bit better? So, right. So tonight, it sounds flippant, but scoring is the easy bit. It really, really is. Those who've had some on-course sessions with me will realise, and hopefully you won't mind me mentioning, David, I had you 2 weeks ago and you said, my God, this is a different game, didn't you? It's, if you understand the game of golf and what you've got and then bring them together, you will be a much, much better golfer. So, scoring is the easy bit, the swing and the mechanics is the hard bit. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to try and get you to the point where you can learn to be a better golfing version of yourself. Bottom line, I did write better version of yourself, and thought somebody's going to throw something in there. There are no rules, and we'll come to that, but the reality is forget whatever you know and try to understand golf from a non-golf perspective. Sounds bizarre, but you'll see that as we go along. There's no such thing as correct, which I'm sure you can all probably already sort of work that out. Matt Cooch swings it one way, Justin Rose swings it another way, some players hit it low, some players hit it high, so there's no such thing as correct. Only you count. I've double underlined that one because the bottom line is there's nobody else who's ever going to hit your golf shot. So the only person that matters is what you're comfortable with, what you can do, and your abilities. You've got to remember that, that's so important. And the final couple of things are create your own program. Now, have any of you heard of the NHS thing called Couch to 5K? Yeah. Fabulous thing. It just gives you, it breaks it down in small steps. Instead of thinking, God, I've got to run 5K, you start off by walking and build up. Well, in effect, after tonight, hopefully you'll have an understanding of where you're at with your golf game, what you need to do to work on your golf game, but in small little pieces, and then build and build and build. So it's your own program to develop your own game. And finally, you want an understanding of your golfing you and how you can improve that through structure. All lost so far? I can see blank faces. Okay. Sounds a silly question, but what is golf? In reality, golf is just a series of shots hit from the first tee until you run out of holes available to you, which is the 18th green. You've got to get your heads around the concept. Golf is not 18 holes of golf. There is no such thing as 18 holes of golf. You tee off the first and you play until you can't play any more holes on the designated course. That is a game of golf. That is what it's all about. We'll come back to doing a little bit more of that so far. So one of the things I'd ask you about it is when you think in those terms, what makes a good player a good player? Anyone? Could be? Yeah?
Good score.
Good scores? Yeah? Repetition, all these things, yeah? Okay?
Staying in the moment.
Great one. Stay in the moment, very good.
Good caddy.
Good game, yeah? The bottom line of a good player is all of those things, but the things that good players do better than anyone else is they understand what they can do and use it, but what they've done beyond all of you is they've created more of an arsenal of shots in order to use the right shot at the right time. If all you have is one swing, one shot, that's all you've got. You've got to hit it great. All the time. You're constantly under pressure to hit a good shot. If you stand over a shot and think, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could move it in that way, I could move it in that way. Now, that's beyond, in some cases for some people, but the reality is add and add and add and add and add. But as soon as you stand over a shot and have two options, you've now got a much better chance of going, the one that I'm better at is that option. Rather than, I've only got 7-iron through the air and away we go. Yeah? So, ridiculously silly question again, but it's just a starting point before we get into the talk really. How can you improve? What's the bottom line of improving?
Looking at it, understanding.
What will make you a better golfer?
Is this an anagram-y thing?
Well, it is actually, but I was going to do hangman on him, but yeah.
Use your brain.
Yeah. Hit less shots. That's so obvious, I know. But that's all golf is. That's all golf is. You need to grasp the concept when you're playing golf. That, as I said earlier on, there are not 18 holes in golf course. I know there physically are. But if you're on the 16th and you're 3 under your handicap, you're not 3 under your handicap. Because you've still got 2 more holes to go. You're not like in a football match when you're 2-0 up and the other team has to score 3 to beat you. You haven't completed the task in front of you. So until you've completed that task, you're not ahead, you're not behind, you're nowhere. Each hole, I hate using the phrase, but each hole is just, you take 4 on the first, you walk onto the next tee and you're hitting your 5th shot. That's all you're doing. Yeah? So if you think in terms of, well, I'll ask a couple of questions. Has anyone ever had 10 consecutive rounds where you've hit identical scores on every hole? No. Has anyone ever had 2 consecutive rounds when you've hit identical scores on every hole? No, no chance. So the reality is, if your handicap is an average of what you shoot, that's all it is. So if a round of golf is 18 holes, in that terminology, and your handicap's 20, all you do is average 20 over. That 20 over, you average, comes in many forms, doesn't it? You can make a birdie on one hole, you can make a bogey on the next, you can make a treble on the next, except the next time you go out, the hole you birdied, you made double bogey on, but you still average around 20. So all it's really saying is, this is my scoring average. So if you think in terms of you will get on a golf course, you will keep hitting until you've finished hitting, and effectively all you do is you take the handicap off your score, off your gross score. That's really what golf is in a handicap sense. There's no par, there's no birdie in that sense. So if you can break it down into thinking in those terms, then instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm 2 behind, I'm 2 ahead, or whatever, you're not, because your average is it's going to average out across the course of the round. So what we've got to do is knock down your average, not improve hole 3 because you double bogey. A prime example of that, but you have 2 people in the same group, one person finds a hole really easy, the next person finds a hole really difficult, even though the stroke index is the same for both of you. But it's how it fits you, how it suits your eye, how you work the hole. So what we've got to do is find ways of knocking shots off your score, which is, that's where is it, hit less shots. That's all you're doing. That's all golf is. You with me so far?
Mm-hmm. I think it's something that a lot of us have heard in the pro shop and we hear on a regular day-to-day basis is played the front line great, but I played the back line awful. Or I played the front line awful and I played the back line great. It's a myth. From now on, there is no difference between those two nines. It's just a continuation of golf, but it becomes a mindset issue. So it's really important to completely dispel that from now on.
Brilliant point, because the reality is, people do that all the time about this 9 holes. What is the difference? For some reason, 9 holes is something we've all got ingrained in us, that was a rubbish front line. I can wipe the slate clean and start again. Well, why can't you do that on every single shot? Why can't you do that on every single hole? Now, admittedly, I'll throw this in now, because you've all been ingrained in thinking it's 18 holes, and more than that, as Tom says, 2 9s, you're all going to carry on doing that for a while. So break it down in smaller chunks. 3 holes at a time. Play 3 holes. What's your score over 3 holes? Not how many to par, I think what's your score over 3 holes. Then as soon as you've got the hang of that, bring it down to 2 holes, 1 hole, each shot at a time. The old saying, which is the oldest adage in golf, play 1 shot at a time. Believe me, the better you get, the more that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Because the reality is, if you walked out to a golf course and you've just gone double bogey, double bogey, double bogey, and you stand on a hole and you're in the middle of the fairway, you're still stressing to some degree about the fact you've got double bogey, double bogey, double bogey. But if you stand there and somebody just dropped a ball on that fairway and said, can you play golf? And you go, yeah, I can't get it, yeah. Can you knock down the green? You go, yeah, no problem. Because your mindset is clean, isn't it? So I always ask the guys, if you stand on a par 4 that's a long par 4 and a short par 4, for somebody like us as players, if we stand on a short par 4 and then hit a poor tee shot, it's natural instinct to think, oh, bloody hell, I'm going in with an 8-iron rather than a wedge. Oh, I can't believe it. But if you stood on a long par 4 and hit your best drive ever and you're going in with an 8-iron, you'd be overjoyed. They're both par 4s. It really doesn't change what's going on. This is how you've got to look at golf. You've got to think, hold on a second, it's the shot in front of me is all that matters. That's all that matters. How do I shoot the lowest score by not doing what? What must you effectively, from what I'm saying, do in your golf game?
You made a must shot.
And cut out the... Yeah, use the words carefully here. You said it, didn't you? Did you? Yeah, no, it's cut out the rubbish, isn't it? It's cut out the rubbish. Before we move on, just to reiterate, because it's all relevant, if there's a 10 handicap golfer playing, he averages 10 over. Now, I haven't got any data on this, but I'm sure you boys, a 10 handicapper probably averages 1 birdie a round. I can't think they'd average more than that, would they? So if a 10 handicapper averages 1 birdie a round, and they're off 10, they make 11 bogeys. Logically, yeah? A 4 handicapper won't average better than 2 birdies. Can't say it'd be 3 as an average, it'd be 2, wouldn't it? Yeah. So a 4 handicapper makes 6 bogeys. 6 bogeys. So what's the easier way of cutting your score down? It's not make more birdies. It's cut out the rubbish. Cut out the poor stuff. Don't try and improve playing good shots. Play shots that allow you the greatest opportunity to not screw up, to borrow a better phrase. That's the bottom line, isn't it? So when you start getting down to probably 1 or 2, that you could start pushing your luck a bit on that and start thinking, okay, I can start taking on holes, as it were. But if you've got an average golfer off 18, I can tell you right now, if they cut out the drivel, that's how they're going to improve. Making 2 birdies around is, oh yes, well done, you've made 2 birdies. You made an extra 6 bogeys by going for those 2 birdies. So this is where I think, if you can get into that mindset. So what we're trying to get you to all understand and achieve is the art of golf is to achieve the lowest score possible in the simplest way. And that, well, then I'll come to the next bit, which is...
Just to add to that quickly, some good advice that I can give you. If you think about when you played your last round, and you've got a birdie putt on the hole, and then you've got a double bogey on the putt on a different hole, which one do you tend to stand over and prioritise? You tend to think, oh, it's a birdie putt, I'm going to put more effort into it. Whereas if you've got a double bogey putt, you're standing over it, you're not really caring too much about it. So just when you play your next round, just make sure that you're treating every putt and every shot as important as the other one. Just because it's
both 6 foot putts, they're both 6 foot putts.
Yeah.
One doesn't matter for a 3 or a 6, it's just another. You've had 36 to that point, it's your 37th shot.
How many of you have had the feeling that you've held a great putt on the last hole? It's like, oh, hold a great one on 18 to finish. It's not, it's not a thing. It's just you're completely relaxed there, and it's your last shot. You're into the clubhouse and the next shot. But everyone seems to hold a great putt on 18. What I was going to say before Lee is like, if you have individual lessons with us, you'll probably often hear us talking about destructive shots, where you're more interested in the best shots. Now, the reason that we talk a lot about destructive shots and limiting them or cutting them out completely is because they are the card wreckers. They're the ones we want to get rid of, that we know that will bring your scores down quicker than hitting good shots. We may hit 2 or 3 good shots around, but your destructive shots, they're the ones that cost you dear.
Ego. It's just ego, isn't it? Get rid of the ego and you'll be a better golfer. It's pretty simple.
How often in your round do you actually pull off the shot that you're
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's very rarely, but it's just making sure that your shots are within a margin that aren't destructive.
We're going on a slight tangent here, but I always say to mine when I'm out there, if ever you ask yourself a question, should I, could I, would I, can I, don't bother. You've answered your own question. The fact you've had to ask the question means it's now a problem. Because you're a negative already, by asking a question. If you stood up over a chip shot that's just up a green from 15 foot away, you wouldn't ask, oh, can I not pound the green? Can I, would I be able to get that on the... You wouldn't, you just walk up to it and go, well, it's a chip shot, away you go. So you don't have to ask the question because it's in your psyche that it's not a problem. By asking the question, you've admitted you've got a problem. There is nothing wrong with admitting you've got a problem. There is... We've all got them. There is nothing wrong with admitting you've got a problem, but what our job tonight is to try and get you to analyse and understand enough to recognise your issues, play golf based on your strengths, practice and work on your weaknesses so that the weaknesses become an additional strength, and you can add that to the equation. If you're planning on playing a layup shot or a shot over water or par 5 and you think, oh, I might have a crack at that in 2, etc. What you've got to work out in your mind is that fitting into my strengths? Is this more likely to not come off than come off? And therefore, what the hell am I doing by taking this on? Because remember, it's very difficult to throttle back when you're thinking about the hole as a par 5 or a par 4. When you think of the hole as just another step to the end of the round, you go, hold on, now, come on, keep the numbers down, get through it, get through. And when an opportunity arises, because you've hit a pitch shot onto a green that goes to 6 foot, oh, great. That's a green light moment, as we call it, where you go, oh, I'll take this opportunity if I can and have a go at it. Only when the opportunities arise, don't force them. Tour pros force them, but they practice 8 hours a day and they're, I'd say, a little bit more talented. I'll bet you. Okay, right. In order for you to all, to move forward with your game, I'm just going to skip forward a little bit. There are a few fundamentals I think you must have, irrelevant of your standard, because it's always relevant to your standard rather than 24 handicap or 6 handicap. If you haven't got balance in your swing, you've had it. Because your strike's good. You can't be consistent if you're unbalanced. It's just a fact of life. When was the last time you saw a tour pro on tour ever lose their balance? It just never happens, does it? Never happens. Can you strike it consistently? Now, you may have seen this in my newsletter. I did a little thing on this in the beginning of the first week of the year. If you can't hit a tee peg underneath you and stand there and hit the tee peg every single swing without fail, you're going to be inconsistent. Every one of us could stand here and probably not even look and go and hit the tee peg underneath because we understand where the club is and we worked at it enough. That means our strike, 90% of the time, is going to be good. And I'm sure you can all understand if your strike is good, your flight is good, and your distance is good. You can control those things. As soon as you hit fractionally out the toe, fractionally out the heel, fractionally out the bottom of the club, you've got to judge what that's going to do. Where's it going to go? How am I going to do it? So if you, first and foremost, if you can't hit a T-peg, and when I say a T-peg, I do mean just the cup of an old-fashioned, I kept calling it old-fashioned these days because no one uses them, the old-fashioned proper T-peg, the cup part of it, if you push it right into the ground and only the cup is visible, if you can't hit that with every single swing, forget your technique, you need to do that. You need to do that. You've got to be able to do that, because if you can't hit T-peg, how are you going to get under the ball to get it flighted, to get distance? And I'm sure most of you now understand the concept, which we talk about in fitting all the time. Distance doesn't need to come from you increasing club head speed. The quickest way to gain distance is quality of strike. If you can hit the same spot on the middle of the club, it will go further than if you hit the toe of the heel. So that's why in the past you've probably all seen we use this stuff. We've talked about this in the past. It's actually Dactar and shoe spray. But actually it's on the face, see where the strike is on the club face. If you can't hit the middle, you're losing yardage. It's just as simple as that. And you know, we use it in the studio an awful lot, and we see massive changes in distance just from the same swing, just hitting out the middle. In fact, David, we did a bit with John Butler the other day, didn't we, doing it? Huge differences in distance.
I remember me and you did some testing when Harry first came, and we were trying to establish what a good strike was, and I was thinking I'm hitting it really nicely, and my strike was actually down the bottom of the club, and I thought I was striking it well. So I think it would be an interesting test when you get that to see if you think you're striking it well, whether it gravitates towards the heel or toe, and then actually feel what a correct strike feels like. It's quite different.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, having an awareness of the centre.
And Lee's hit the nail on the head as well. Most people think they strike it okay when they hit out the middle. There's a difference between the middle of the club as in across horizontally, but also the middle of the club vertically. Now, very, very few people, I'm sure you guys will, very few people compress and strike a golf ball. In fact, Graham and I were out there earlier on today and we discussed it, and your strike is off the planet better than it used to be, and you've gained masses of yardage, haven't you, from compressing the strike. So when people say I can't hit it very far, first of all, get your strike right. So, T-peg drill, as silly as it seems. Now, if you can't do it the full swing, do it three-quarter. If you can't do it three-quarter every time, do it the half swing. If you've got to get to the point where you're just doing that in the back garden, and you can't hit the T-peg with that, get that first, then build it up, then build it up, and then build it up. You have to be able to do that. No good player strikes it poorly. There are certain people who strike it better, like Lee now flushes it. Lee strikes it much better than I do. Much better than I do. Okay, but also strikes and putts. Just to give you an idea, remember this is a generic thing, so strikes and putts. How many of you have ever thought about putts? Everyone knows you heel and toe a driver, you know you haven't struck it great with an iron or a driver. No one ever thinks about putting. Except David did over here, didn't know this about strike. Get it out of the middle of the putter and you'll go, oh, that's just rolled differently. Because it rolls. Whenever you watch a really good player putt, you know, if you had the opportunity to play with a good player, their putts never look like they're going to get to the hole, ever. Because the ball comes off and they just keep going and going and going, because that's because they're rolling it. They're rolling their rock, as we call it. Poorer putters, the ball looks like it comes shooting off the face, skids and doesn't roll. So the ball doesn't get there, so they hit it harder and harder. Then all of a sudden, get one, and it's gone 8 foot past. So until you're consistent, you don't know what distance you're going to hit a putt. If you don't know which distance you're going to hit a putt, you don't know which break to hit the putt. So you can see how everything leads into everything else. Can you see? So these are simple things to do. Starting point.
So I don't want us to talk about that putting strike. So when we were juniors, we used to put a small, I'm sure you've noticed, a small piece of blue tack either side of the centre of the putter. So maybe one here and one here, okay? Balls width apart, okay? Exactly where the ball is going to strike in there. If you guys do that at home, quite often you'll see that you hit the blue tack and it makes you look silly. And we've done it on the putting green, but a piece of blue tack here, a piece of blue tack here, and it's really hard to hit it out of the middle. But you'll notice that you will hit a certain piece of blue tack more often than not.
Yeah.
Therefore, you need to change your strike. Okay, it's just analysing what part of blue tack you're hitting and then trying to change something about it. Okay, you will hit a certain part of the putter more often than not.
Nobody will tend to hit toe and heel. They will hit toe or heel.
Yeah.
And one of the things which I'd say we're trying to get across today is we're not here to say to change what you're doing, as in to us technically. If you're hitting out the toe every time, just try and hit it out the heel. Feel what it feels like to hit it out of the heel. Once you feel what it feels like to hit out the heel, you'll be surprised how easy it is then to go, so that's toe, that's heel, where's the middle? But until you know you're not hitting it out of the middle, you don't know what the heel is, what the toe is, etc. So silly little things to just understand where you're at in what you're doing. The next one is starting point. Silly thing, going back a long time, let me reminisce here for a second, but back in the 80s there's a famous golfer in America called, I think his name's Ken Green, not Ken Brown, Ken Green. There was a famous picture of him stood in his conservatory with his patio doors open, only about 6 inches wide, and he stood there hitting 3 woods off a piece of carpet through his patio gap. Now, that's a tour pro, but the reality of that is if you actually take that on and take that a little bit further, we can all create gates to work out whether or not you've got any chance of starting your ball on line. So if you're starting quite a wide game, so if you put something like 2 sticks down and you were here, and you stood there and you hit some 6 irons or something like that, first of all, can you get it through that? Yeah, great, I'm getting it through that. So then you just bring it in a bit, and you bring it in a bit, and bring it in a bit. You'll get to a point where you'll find where your optimum is. Now, even, we'd struggle with probably, I'd say that we'd struggle with much tighter than that, I would think. Okay, but so you can imagine you need to start wider, but at least reference it. Okay, I always err towards the outer one, the right one, and then work from there. It's referencing, it's understanding what you're doing. But take that on further, you've got to recognise, going on a slight tangent, none of you in this room can hit a 280-yard draw over the top of the trees with a 3-wood to 6 foot like Tiger Woods. You can't. You will never do it. I don't mean to be rude, but you'll never do it. But you've all hold skills. You've all hold 15-footers. I guarantee, I pretty much guarantee, I bet you everyone in here at some point in your life has chipped in. So you can do exactly the same as a tour pro on the short game. You can hold putts like a tour pro and you can chip like a tour pro. You can't do it as consistently as them, but it proves you can do it. But you will never hit a 280-yard, raking it off the top of the turf on a par 5. So don't work at the things that aren't attainable to you. Improve the things that are attainable to you in order for you to think, okay, I can progress this, I can move this forward, I can do something with this. So if you think in terms of chipping, if you can't chip between a gate 6 foot away, something like that, you really need to be working on your game. Because if you... Because that should be simple. If you can't hit, you can imagine, if that's then a 30-yard chip off a green, that ball's going 12 foot right, 15 foot right. Statistically, I'm sure you've all heard this before, if you don't hit it inside 6 foot, you might as well hit it to 30 foot. Because statistically, if you're not inside 6 foot, you're not going to hold it. That's tour stats. 49% of, I think it was 49% of 6-footers on tour. Only 49% hold of 6-footers on tour. That's tour pros. So if you think, so if you're not hitting it inside 6 foot, you are not going to hold it. So if you can't get a ball started on line on a chip shot here, even if you get your pace right, you're offline, aren't you? So something as simple as just standing there on the chipping green, hitting it through a gap in your back garden, hitting it through, forget where it goes, you can work on that later, but can I get it started on line? That's not something you'd need our help with, really. You can just go, I always hit it right. Well, how do I hit it a bit further left? You can just, are you with me so far there? So you can just do these little drills to build up. Distance control. This is a slight caveat one. If we start on putting, distance control on putting. If you've got to think to yourself, the maximum putt you're going to have is, generally, it's going to be 30 odd foot, isn't it? Yeah, now I accept. A 30-footer across a slopey green, not the easiest. A 30-footer on the flat, there is no reason why a single one of you in here physically cannot hit a good putt from 30 foot. You can all do it. You've all done it. So you need to have distance control. problem with distance control, as we've already said, it's normally strike. So as Tom's saying, if you hit it at the toe of the heel with a piece of blue tack, you'll soon work it out. If you hit it at the toe, it will generally come up miles short. If you hit it at the heel, it comes up a little bit short. It's the way the dynamics of the putter works, because the shaft's in the heel, so it's more stable. So if you recognise that, okay, I'm not hitting out the middle, then you can work on your distance control. Once you're striking it, then you need to be able to do a drill, which is one of the best drills you'll ever do, which is hitting a putt to a designated target, hit a putt, without looking up, say to yourself, I reckon that's short and left. And then look up and go, oh, long and right. Because your association of stroke, most people don't put enough time and effort into associating what they've done with the result. They go, oh, that was rubbish, or oh, that was good. They haven't actually gone, that felt X, Y, and Z. You've all got feel, you can chip. So learn to stand there and think to yourself, no, that's short and left. Yeah, short and left, good. It won't take you long, I promise you it won't take you long. We're boring you, aren't we?
No, sorry, boss.
It won't take you long to start getting a sensation of feel for this. And when you stand there and think to yourself, oh yeah, I really think I'm getting the pace of that, you're getting somewhere, aren't you? You're starting to get your distance control. You're working on something structured rather than technical. It's a feedback system that you're doing all the time. That's all golf is really. Learn the bits you can't do very well.
Yeah, just to add on that, learning with feel results rather than visual results is so important. So when you are on the putting green, and as I said, doing that drill that Harry just mentioned, really good. Don't be reactive to what's happened to the ball. Learn what's happening to your putter. Learn the feel, and then go from there. And you'll see different results. I'm sure you'll see different results.
Fabulous comment. Reactive. Fabulous comment. Most people stand on the practice ground and on the course and go, oh, that one went left. What are you going to do in the next one? You're going to hit it right, aren't you? Because everyone changes something for the fact they hit it left. If you've stood there and you've hit 15 shots pretty straight and then you hit one left, do you really need to change anything? You just accept, okay, that wasn't the best swing, hit it a bit left. Move on or carry on with the thing you're working on. Don't react to what's going on. If you've carved the last 2 tee shots right and you think, oh God, I've carved them right, there's going to come a point you hit a massive pull because you're thinking, oh God, don't go right, don't go right. By doing that, it's no longer your golf swing anyway, so you might as well just throw the balls up in the air and have a guess as where it's going to go. So at least stick to your golf swing and have conviction with it. If you've got a recurring problem with that, that's when you then get on the practice ground and resolve it another time. Landing spots. Talking about short game again, if you can't land a ball where you want to land it from, let's start at 10 yards away, if you can't land it where you want to land it, you're guessing. Because it doesn't matter which club you've chosen to use for the shot, it's, well, is that club relative to where I'm about to hit it, or where I should hit it, or... So, first and foremost, when it comes to short game for control, in fact, David, today, wasn't it? He's absolutely mastered the action today. He said to me, I'm chipping poorly, mastered the action, never concentrated on landing. We worked on landing today. There you go. So it's get action correct, so that you can land the ball where you want. Now, irrelevant of club, absolutely irrelevant of club. If I said to you, go on with a 5-iron, land it on that little brown spot over there, you should be able to land it on that brown spot over there. What happens to the ball afterwards is dependent on the fact that it was a 5-iron and it's a wet green or whatever. But you can only control the flight of a chip shot. That's all you can control. The roll part of it is down to the thing you put in your hand. So if you can land it where you want to land it, you then know you're picking the wrong clubs because they're not doing the result. If you're not landing where you want to land it, how do you know if it's the club that you're choosing that's wrong or your technique that's wrong? So just learn to land it with any club. The ball will roll out consistently because you're landing at the same spot, and you would actually see a pattern of 9-iron, 7-iron, 5-iron because they progressively roll out further, landing in the exact same spot. Now, a lot of people will think, well, during the winter you can't really work on it because the ball doesn't roll out. Well, what you'll now recognise is the ball doesn't need to roll out. All you need to do is chip into a children's swimming pool. As long as you can land it in that spot, you've achieved what you need to achieve. Then you look at what the ball does and start now changing according to how the ball then reacts when it does land on the green. But if you stand there and you can't, from me to the back of the room, land it on something, you are going to struggle to hit good chip shots.
I'd suggest when you do this drill that you don't do it to a flag after
Never, yeah.
Pick a landing spot and a roof or a
Towel on the ground, something like that.
Chip to that with all your different clubs and see how the ball rolls out. Do not have a flag in the distance, because then again you become reactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to see that little pattern of, 9 irons went there, 7 irons went there, 5, this is great. We will see patterns. Everything in golf is about understanding patterns to be able to do what you need to do. We'll build to that later. Excuse me. Yardages, I know you probably all heard me say this one. Graham on the wall. Yardages are guides. How many of you can hit within 2 yards every time? Then why are you that bothered by yardages? Seriously, why are you that bothered by yardages? If you can't hit within 2 yards every time, you're not really that bothered by your yardages. Slightly flippant 2 yards, but you know what I mean. So, yeah. What you need to think to yourself is a yardage is purely a guide as to the distance you've got to cover for perfection. But a green is normally 32 yards deep. The average green is 32 yards deep and about 24 yards wide, I think the average green is. Something like that. So if you think, if a pin's in the middle of the green, everyone gets a yardage device out, gets their watch and goes, oh, hello, 132 to the front, 147 to the middle. So what does everyone do? 132 to the front, well I can get 9 on it. What you should be looking at is what's the middle and the back. Which club can I hit brilliantly that won't go over the back? Or will only just trickle to the back? Because if you flush it, hit it absolutely the best you can hit it, it's going to go longer than your average. That's the whole point of yardages, they're averages. So you want a club that when you flush it, goes to the back of the green. When you average it, it goes to your yardage. And when you hit it poorly, it hits the front of the green. It's quite logical when you think in those terms, isn't it? But what you've also got to recognise is, if you've got 140 yards to 140 yards to cover, you could do that in effectively 140 times God knows how many options. You could hit it 100 yards and 40 yards wrong. 110 yards with 30 yards wrong. 120 yards with 20 yards wrong. Or all the way through the air 140 yards. So I come to something which I've asked everyone all the time. Has anyone in here ever read the How to Play Golf book?
No.
That's because there isn't one. Virtually every sport you ever get, there's always a book on how to play. No one's ever written a book on how to play golf because there is no way to play golf. Golf is about how do you personally cover the distance required in the simplest way for you personally. Now, if you're brilliant at hitting up through the air with a little fade, and 140 yards matches your A-time, well, great, hit it 140 yards with an A-time with a little fade. If that's a debatable that you're going to hit the fade, why not play 100 yards with a half swing that lands 100 yards in front of you and rolls out 40 yards? It's about hitting it the desired distance to the desired flag in the option that is best for you to achieve a result. There is no such thing as the right shot. And actually, I'll use Graham again today. Graham and I did a playing session about 3 weeks ago. We got out and done the same holes again today. Wind was in the opposite direction, so we played totally different shots, not just because of the club, but the type of shot, because of the wind conditions, changes the way the ball flies. So therefore, you need to go in lower. So we'll chase this one in. The flag was on the front of one green, when last time it was on the back of the green. It's about going, okay, I need to cover that distance. I'm good at X shot. So a drill I'd suggest you all do in order to get that one done correctly, you need to be able to hit every club in your bag, except driver, every club in your bag, pretty much every yardage up to your maximum. So I know I've said it before, but if you hit a 7-iron 140 yards, you should hit a 7-iron on the range, 90 yards, 100 yards, 110, 120, 130, 140. Because you need options. you'll then start discovering after a while, do you know what, my 80% swing actually is the one which I control the best to cover that yardage. Actually, I've got 120 yards left, but actually my 7-iron at 80% is a really comfortable shot for 120 yards in the range. Well, who says you need to hit a 9-iron? Hit a 7-iron. Don't be pigeonholed into thinking, well, everyone else hits a 6-iron or everyone else hits a 9-iron, etc. Because no two of you are the same. You've all got to play according to how you've got to play the game. And if you can grasp that concept and go, which option is best for me, you will play better golf. Because obviously, logically as well, which swing is going to go wrong more? That or that? The first one's going to go wrong. You've got to have rotation of the club face, you've got transfer, you've got energy. It's so much more to go wrong by constantly playing full shots, which, let's be honest, all of you here will admit you pretty much hit it 90% most of the time. Whilst good players, well, they say good players generally never hit it more than 80%, unless there is a situation where by getting a 3-wood out on a par 5 they can get there by jumping on it a bit, they'll jump on it. But the risk is worth taking. So you need to be playing in comfort level, comfort golf. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, the question you should always ask yourself is, based on that, what do you need the ball to do? Not what do you want it to do. It's not about what you want to do, it's about what does the ball need to do and which of your arsenal of shots best fits that requirement. And that's why amateurs always go, oh, I love my 7-iron, but I can't hit my 8-iron. It's just a different, you know, at the end of the day, if you put a swing on it, you could ask any of us, hit it, I want you to do a half swing to 140 yards, and we'd all go, well, in that case, it's probably a 5. We know what that would do. We have that ability to control it. But that changes trajectory, it changes all sorts of things. Now, I know that sounds technical, and some of you will be thinking, crikey, I can't even hit it that consistently on my full swing. Well, that's the point. If you can't hit it consistently on your full swing, why are you hitting a full swing? Because we're all brainwashed into thinking golf is that, rather than dunk, dunk. But dunk isn't going to go there. So remember, the whole objective of what we're doing is to reduce that, rather than be all about the impressive. So just boring nudge golf will get your scores down, and once you've got your scores down, you up the ante of what the nudge is. Tommy Fleetwood has taken this to the nth degree. Tommy Fleetwood doesn't hit a single shot now beyond that. So in old money, that would have been deemed as he's playing a half swing. But he recognises that his most successful shots are played with that controlled swing. So that's his golf swing now. He doesn't care what it looks like. As long as he's got millions rolling into his bank account, he doesn't really care what it looks like. But I have to say, for somebody who played a little bit, I got to a point where instead of being paralysis or analysis and trying to look really good, I just got to the point where I was playing, as long as I earn some money, don't care, what do I need to do? And that's why I ended up doing a lot of this. What do I need to do? So another question I'd ask you all is, do you all have, and you need to have, what's known as a stock shot? If you have a stock shot in your bag, in your arsenal, you're on to a winner straight away. A stock shot being a shot that, no matter what it is, you pretty much go, well, if I just do my swing, whatever that is, I'm going to get a result. It might not be the prettiest, it might not cover the whole distance, but it's going to get down there. If you've got that in your bag, you're on to a winner. So a stock shot is an essential way of moving forward. You'd leave it short though, wouldn't you? Okay, external influences. You need to understand them. You don't need to go into details about them, but you need to understand them. You're on the upslope. You've gone for the second on the old course. You've come up 15 yards short. You're chipping off the upslope onto the green. The external factors there are the lie. So if you know that a 9-iron is 50% flight, 50% roll, let's say, if you work to that philosophy, it can't be 50-50 off that upslope because you've turned a 9-iron, and you think on the slope, you've turned a 9-iron into a sand iron. Because off that upslope, you've now got 56 degrees of loft. Whilst before, what's a 9-iron then? 39, 40. whilst normally off flat, that's 40 degrees, 39, 40 degrees. So you've just effectively made that now the 75-25 percentage because you're off an upslope. So you've got to understand these, and because the amount of times I see people, especially in the playing sessions, where they've actually hit a really good shot. They just haven't gone through the process of thinking, oh, hold on, I'm on an upslope, that's adding loft, so I need to think that through.
9-hole on the Wanderbury, second shot. How often do you come up short? How often do you go through the back of that hole?
Yeah, 9-hole
yeah. I wouldn't have thought. 9-hole on the Wanderbury, second shot.
Lading it over the back doesn't count.
No, that's right.
But it is.
I'm not very good on this deal on deal. So what you're saying is you're standing on the slope, and by taking what you might think you need, you've created more loft. So you're saying you must always think about taking a much less lofted club then,
Yeah.
to just dink it up.
If you think in terms of, if that's the standard loft, and we're going on an upslope, you've now turned that loft to a considerably greater amount of loft.
Yeah.
So that's now become like a lob wedge.
Yes.
So what you've got to do is you've got to choose the club that in theory gets you back to where you would have been on the flat to cover the shot that you want to do.
Yeah.
So if you've added 2 lofts, you go down 2 clubs.
Right.
If you get the logic.
Yeah.
Once again, that's why I said these are fundamental needs. Because you don't need to be taught those things. You just need to play around a little bit, go on the chipping green off and up something and think, oh crikey, that really did make quite a difference. I'll try it with a less lofted club, and that acted like my pitching wedge did when I was 5 yards further forward, but on the flat. So that's why every golfer of every standard needs to have these concepts, because it doesn't matter whether you're 36 or 6, it's relevant to your standard. And that's what's really important, it's relevant to your standard.
You've got a great piece of land on the short game area which has so many sloping lies, so you can manipulate your lies to the same landing spot, again away from the target so you don't become reactive, and just play around a bit. Have a 7-iron, 8-iron, 9-iron, pitch a sand wedge from that same line and see how it reacts differently.
And then try and get the same distance from the hole slightly to the side on the flat and go, oh, it's totally different. The 7-iron's gone miles further because I wasn't on the upside. So you just need to do these little. There's no point hitting a really good shot without going through a process. I forgot, that's uphill. It's like the second on the Wanderbury. Hitting up this and the 9th on the Wanderbury. If you're going up the second on the Wanderbury, that's 2 clubs longer just because of the upslope.
Second hole.
Second hole. That's 2 clubs longer just because of that upslope. So unless you cover the whole distance through the air, you've got to remember as well, when the green's up there, the ball doesn't fly its full potential. When the green's down here on the same level, it gets to there and then carries on. It's on the arc. So you've always got to, these are the things that it's just, unfortunately from us, we've played golf long enough in the experience, but people just play the wrong shots because they don't understand these little things. And it's not working on your golf swing, that's just going, why haven't I thought about that? The final one is, it doesn't matter what standard you are, you have to be great from 40 yards in order to shoot good scores. If every one of you here were magically given a pro short game right this second, which there's no reason why any of you can't, as we've already discussed, if you had a pros game, every one of you probably halve your handicap straight away. And straight away, absolutely, without batting an eye. Because the pro gets to 40 yards and it's 8 out of 10. We're going to hit 1 chip and 1 putt. 40 yards for a lot of people is still, I hope I can get it on the green. Well, but I've done some of the clinics and people have said, I'm just happy if I get it on the green from here. Well, the problem with that is if you don't strike it correctly, which then means you land it correctly, you now come up 20 foot short, you don't strike your putt correctly, you come up 6 foot short, you've just taken 4 where we've taken 2.
And the bunker's getting away.
This comes down to efficient practice as well. It comes down to efficient practice. So if you tally up how many times you practice between 20 to 40 yards, how many times you practice that shot, as opposed to how many times you hit driver on the driving range, you're going to see probably every single one of you is going to be way more hitting driver than hitting a 40-yard shot. Which one's going to limit your scores? The 40-yard shot for sure.
I think we also see a massive emphasis on long game, hitting a good driver and then maybe a good 5-wood. How many times does it land in that 40-yard area and then it goes completely wrong? You've done the hard work.
Yeah, 2 shots up to there.
Yeah, exactly. You've done the hard work and then, oh, I'm 40 yards away, everything's okay. Oh no, it's not. It's not. Yeah.
And as I said at the start, one shot is one shot. No matter...
1 inch or 300 yards.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So one shot counts as one shot.
So it is about breaking down these till you get the most out of what you do. Right, okay, so, I'm just go back a little bit. So what we now need to do is get you to the point where you can be a better you. So none of that will be relevant unless you've analysed whether you can do it. So the strike one, which I think will be an eye-opening one to all of you. When you stand there and half swing is the struggle to strike it, or to strike that tee leg, you know, crikey, I've got to get that right. I've got to get that right. It doesn't matter what your swing is. It doesn't matter the mechanics of it. Hit that tee bag consistently. If you hit that tee bag consistently, you'll get a consistent shot. Remembering that consistent shots don't always have to be good consistent shots, but a consistent shot is something you can change because it's the same. The worst is when you go, well, I hit it left and right. Well, if you hit it left and right, how do you know what to work on? Because you just go, oh, I don't know. If you stand there and say, came back to one of us and said, do you know, I've worked on that tee-peg drill and I hit the tee-peg every time now, but I just tend to pull it 10 yards left. Brilliant. We'll tell you how to stop pulling it 10 yards left. But well done, because you've now done the same time after time after time. So, what's really important for you to be a better you is analyse what you're doing. You don't do it mid-round, because you'll start, your head will start. But analyse what you're doing. As much as you can when you've finished a round of golf, spend 5 seconds in the car and think, right, etc. Okay, and I'll come to a great way of analysing your game in a minute. I think probably the most important part of tonight is going to be from this perspective. Acknowledge what you're doing. Don't live in dreamland. I can't stand, well, all we ever hear is, well, I can reach that green. I have reached that green. Because you've got to say, yeah, you can, but if you had 100 balls, how many of 100 are you going to, well, probably 4. Well, are you really taking that shot on then? So what you've got to think to yourself is if you take a shot on because you can do it, which we do here all the time, the chances are you won't put it off because you're under pressure, because you're thinking, I can, remember that at the beginning, can, I, should, I, would have. So if you think, well, I can, you're under pressure. If you're under pressure, you're probably not going to put it off very well. If you don't put it off, you don't know where the ball's going to go. By strategising, you're always putting yourself as, giving yourself the greatest chance of putting yourself in the area that gives you the next greatest chance to attack the hole and shoot the lowest score.
I think a really great example of this is a long par 3. Now, I might follow people on a round, get to a 170, 180 yard par 3, and the amount of people I see pull out a 3-iron or even a driver and want to, oh, it's a par 3, I need to hit the green. Now, you can split that into two shots of 90 yards,
yep,
which you are all capable of hitting. This is sort of going back to there's no rules of golf, rather than, oh, it's a par 3, I have to go for the green. No, just play 2 simple shots that you know.
16 on Wandlebury is the prime example of that.
Yeah.
16 on Wandlebury. Yeah. If you're off, if you can't carry a 7-iron, 150, 160, you shouldn't be even entertaining it. Knock it up short, pitch it on, 2-putt, walk off. Your average score for the year will be much better for the year than it would by the odd occasion you go, yay, I hit that awesome one and I made 3, because actually I was so, in fact 4, because I was so excited I hit the green, I 3-putted it. But it happens all the time though, doesn't it? We all know that. But by playing for the 4, the second thing about that is psychologically you're playing a positive by making a bogey, rather than it being the negative of making a bogey. So you've stood there and you've gone, knock it up there, comfortable as anything, knock it on, comfortable as anything, 2 putts, I'm 8-4, that's what I was playing for. Now if you hit a really good pitch, and you hold a 10-footer or a 6-footer because you hit a good pitch, brilliant, you've made a 3, but you took 5 out of the equation. You took 5 out of the equation.
You could take your play short, then your next shot goes in the bunker.
Yeah, but you can't account for that. That's but you can see the logic behind that. So you can see now on that. Just a quick one on that. The amount of people who I've done playing sessions with on 16 say they can't hit the green, and I'll have to say, I don't mean the majority of these ladies I've done have said I can't hit the green, so they go for the gap on the right. My God, you're trying to hit a wood into that. But what you do need to know, which answers your question a little bit, is if you've done enough analysis of your game in the past, you'll know that your 50-yard pitch shot is pretty consistent. Your 20-yard pitch shot is not. So why are you hitting it up to 20 yards? Because it's nice and close to the green. But now you stood over a chip shot where you go, oh my God. How many people really don't like that little one of those, but is quite comfortable with that?
Especially over a bunker.
Especially over a bunker. So strategise. Think to yourself, where do I need to leave this to then leave it, to then give yourself the greatest opportunity to shoot a score. It's about understanding strengths and weaknesses, and that's really what it's all about. So analyse. The reason I said acknowledge was an important one is if you acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses, you can work to them. Don't bury your head in the sand. But what I would say about that is once you've acknowledged, recognise you only have the ability you've got today. So when you're on a golf course, play to that ability. When you've acknowledged a failing, I use the word failing loosely, when you've acknowledged a weakness or a failing, that's when you work on it so that you can then add it to the game at a later date. I say to all my year plan people, tell me where you're failing and we can work at it. If you find that you can't do a certain length of shot or a certain type of shot or a trajectory of shot, then we can work at it. Don't try and stand and go, well, I'll find a way. Oh yeah, I kept it nice and low, but it's over there now, or something like that, because that's not a shot you've practiced and you can't play, so what's the point? Play the shots you know, play the shots you can play, accept the shots you can't, work on them, get them to the point where you feel you've got some confidence in them, bring them into your game. So that's why I don't know what you always say, I always say to anyone I work with, it takes 3 months. It takes 3 months. If you've decided what a weakness is, carry on playing. I go against a lot of pros in this. I never say to people, take what I've done with you on the range to the course. A lot of pros will say, but it's only my opinion. You haven't moulded that, that's not yours. So there's no point standing on the first tee thinking, right, hold on a second, so left shoulder high, right hand high. You've had it already, you've had it. Get out there, play golf, and over time, if you work on it on the range or on the carpet at home or putting, whatever, without knowing it, it becomes what you're doing because you worked at it. And then all of a sudden you get to the course and think, I'm doing it anyway. It's become what you do. So that's why analyse, acknowledge, adapt your game, which is based on my weaknesses at X, so I'm going to lay out 50 yards short of the green, not 20 yards short of the green. So adapt your game and then act upon it. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to play that hole. That's how I'm going to go through it. Now, one of the things that's really important is that if we take something like the 16th on the Waterbury for an example, if you were laying up, and I'm not saying you're going to do it, but if you were laying up, you've got a certain yardage to cover. Ground's wet, windy into, windy down, wind off the right, wind off the left, sunny day, warm, cold day. That yardage is never that yardage. That yardage is 3 clubs difference, one day to the next. So don't ever relate yardage to clubs, which is what we talked about earlier on. You've got Or exactly.
Yeah, you think about the ninth hole. Who hits the same club off the ninth every time just because it's the ninth hole?
And you've got there before you've even got on the tee, you've pulled out your bag. Well, hold on a second. One of the things I'll throw at you is, if you work on the mindset that you have never, ever played those golf courses out there. You've walked on them, and you've played previously, but you've never played that course as is, today, in those conditions, with those pins, with those tees, with that wind. So it's a new golf course in theory when you set foot on it. What you've got to do is, I've got to go from point A to point B. Well, point B yesterday was downwind, so actually I needed a hybrid. But point B today, crikey, I'm into wind, so to get to point B I need a driver. So it's not about clubs, it's about hitting the place, the zone, the area. So you adapt accordingly all the time. And so this thing here is how you will change and work on what you do. So,
Let me add one thing again.
yeah, please.
How many people have played the 3 club competitions, or 3 club and a putter? Do your scores often get a bit better sometimes, or do they get worse? Yeah. Best score you've ever done?
Why?
Because you haven't got the choice of muddling up your head.
You're forced into playing shots that aren't the norm for you. You end up going, well, I might as well lay out here because I can't get there with because I've only got a 6-iron in my 3 clubs. So actually, it opens your eyes to a different way of playing. So
I think, yeah, you start to see shots then as well, rather than thinking swing, which is a great way to do it.
I think if none of you have done it as well, playing off the blue tees is a great way to actually improve your game. The blue tees. There's blue tees on the old course. There's a blue tee card. If you go out there just one day, whether it's on your own as a practice, play off the blue tees. The course is a completely different golf course, and you end up playing from places that you've never played before. But then you learn different things about your golf game and what shots. And
absolutely, it's awesome. But that's a great example. The amount of times men and women play together in a mixed foursomes event, and both the women and the men come in and say, "Crikey, I was playing shots today I've never played before." Well, you're now in your mind going, "Crikey, what do I do with that?" You've got to think.
The hardest part is trying to tell her, don't get me closer to the green. Leave one full shot in, which is 100 yards there. No, I can get you closer than that.
Don't want that.
Which is what you were saying.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. Strengths and weaknesses again. Strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so some of you may have in the past seen this because I've done this once before, but I think it's something that's monumentally relative to what you're going to do. In order for you to understand your game, you need to understand what you do in patterns. So the reality is that's your average, isn't it? Your patterns are effectively your average. So if you think in terms of, this is what's known as the H graph. So down the side you've got holes 1 to 18. Well, completed on, but I'm sure you can work out. That carried on. So 1 to 18, which is going to be putts. We've got a green into quadrants. We've got the area which is around the green, front and back, which is for the shot that you are hitting to the green. You have your teeing area for the tee shot. And this zone here is known as the layup zone. So only if you're not going for the green does this zone become relevant. So imagine that's not there. If you stood on the first and you can reach it in 2, it's that zone and that zone that matters. This one doesn't count. If you're going for the green in 3 on the first, it's that zone, then that zone, then that zone. You with me? So, if you think in terms of on the first, you stand on the first. Morning, Dave, you right?
I'm struggling now.
Tough session, tough lesson. So, on the... you're right, if you want to go. Do you want a drink? Shall I get you a drink? So on the first, you hit your tee shot out a little bit to the right. You're on the fairway, but a little bit to the right. Yeah, so you're on the fairway. Good. You go for the green in 2, and you come up short. So there's your tee shot, hole number 1. There's your second shot, hole number 1.
That's in the bunker.
I can't draw the bunker on there because this is for all of the holes. But yeah. So you've gone fairway, you've gone bunker short left. Yeah? You splash it out to there, and then you have 2 putts. So you write 2 on it. The second hole, you hit it down the right into the rough. So second, you go for the green in 2. Do you know what? You came up just short on the left again. You chip on and have 2 putts. Third hole, you bomb your drive down there beautifully, and you knock it on the front right of the green, and you have 2 putts. You can see you'll start building up patterns. what you will generally recognise at the end of a round is predominantly you will miss fairways on one side and you will always tend to miss greens on one side and one length. You hardly ever will you ever write anything there unless you've hit a thin chip or something through the back of the green. Hardly ever. So that comes back to, well, in that case, why am I looking at front and middle rather than middle and back? So you can see you can reference it back to that. So when you start doing that, you do that for 18 holes, you've got now a monstrous amount of information. You've got your patterns on where you hit your misses, or you good shots, but you hit your misses. You've got putts. The only one that matters. How many times does somebody say, "Oh, I only had 31 putts today"? 31 putts good? 31 putts for us is quite good. We'd like 29 really, but 31 putts for us is quite good. If you only hit 3 greens in a round in regulation, 31 putts is horrendous. Because you're chipping on. So you should be chipping and one putting. So it's the only part of the game where you should take less than we do. Because we're hitting, so because we're going in with a 7-iron and hitting the green, we're probably knocking it to 20 foot, so we're going to 2 putts. If you're chipping onto the green all the time, you should be chipping onto a 6 foot and in, and then hold it. So from a putts perspective when you analyse, hole 3 has no bearing really whatsoever. Because you hit the green, 2 putts is what you're going to have. Generally, you're going to average 2. Holes 1 and 2, you've got to ask yourself, oh crikey, is it my chipping that's wrong, or is it my putting that's wrong? Because although you've got 2 putts, and according to 2 putts a hole average, that's good. It's not. It shows that's a weakness. Do you all get that? Do you understand that? Yeah? So, until you've got data, and I know it sounds data and people go, oh, do I really need to bother with this? But if you want to improve, and I presume the reason you're here is because you do, now you can do that. So if you think you did 10 of those, 10 rounds, sounds a lot, I know, but you did 10 rounds of those, and you laid them out on a table in front of you, I promise you, you'll go, do you know what, 8 out of the 10 rounds I've missed the first fairway down the right. I come up short on the second every single time. Now you can effectively create one of these for the average of the rounds and start going, right, I need to play the second hole differently. So what am I doing that's wrong? I haven't taken into consideration the slope. Now I'll take 2 clubs more, I'll get it up the green, I'm up to the middle of the green rather than coming up short all the time. You see, this is not technical stuff, it's not changing what your swing is, it's use what you've got today and alter what you're doing as a strategy to improve what you're doing. It's a simple way to move your game forwards. If you have this scenario though, quite a lot, that then comes back to the questions of do you strike it? Do you land it correctly on the short game? Are you good from 40 yards? Not really. Right, I need to go and do a little bit of work on it. Are you with me so far? Any questions on that? Does that all make sense? Yeah? Okay, to take that on a little stage further as well, here is an example of the second on the Wander Green. In my opinion, the best designed golf hole on the 2 courses. Now I say design, not necessarily aesthetically, but design-wise, that is a course designer, that is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Because he is totally and utterly fooling you into playing the golf course the wrong way. But that's what course design is about, isn't it? He's trying to get you to take shots and you shouldn't take off. So you've got if you think about it, you've got a fairway that goes that way slightly, then a fairway that goes that way slightly, to a green that goes that way slightly. Where do you need to be coming into this green from in order to have the greatest opportunity to hit the green? What does everyone do? Big shot towards the 2 bunkers on the right. The better you hit your tee shot on the second, the more difficult your shot to the green. That's a brilliant course design. What you've got to think to yourself is, do you know what, I'll sacrifice 20 odd yards, come closer to the middle or left side of the fairway. Now the green opens up from that angle. I don't have to hit a very good shot. It can scamper and run and top it and thin it. That's going to go dun 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 onto the green. From over here by the bunkers, I don't care how good a shot you hit, If it's not perfect, you're not going to get on that green. Because you've got no leeway. You've got to hit such a good golf shot to hit that green. So think about what the next shot is doing so you give you the greatest opportunity to hit it onto the green. It's about strategy. And people are always baffled by this when I say you are better off coming from the light rough on the correct side of the fairway than you are from being in the fairway on the wrong side of the fairway. And I can tell you right now, the old course is brilliant at that. The old course is phenomenal. The design on that old, especially the back nine, if you don't place your ball in the right place, the course designer's done you up like a kipper. The Wandlebury not quite so much. The Wandlebury in general is a little bit more straightforward, but you've got to think about the game of golf is tic-tac. So the secondary part of always the tic-tac is if you need to go to the left to go to the right, because you always get, yeah, you need to tee up on the right to hit to the left, to open up your angle, to hit to the right. Golf is not straight. It's over there, greatest margin of error. Where's my greatest margin of error? Well, actually slightly left of the on the fairway rather than down the middle. Now, I can, now look at that. And it's amazing. But if you also have the ability to then cover yardage, any yardage with any length of swing, effectively, from doing the 70, 80, 90, 100 yards, etc. If you could stand there and you've got 150 yards to go, 150 yards for most of you is probably a good hit, probably pushing a hybrid for an awful lot of you. Well, do you need to hit 150 through the air, which means you've got to give it all of that? David will vouch for this, we did this the other day. Standing there and doing that, I promise you, will go the same yardage. Just does it in a different way. Just chipping it, doing that and just striking it, getting it landing, but because you haven't hit it hard, it doesn't climb up high, so now it's coming in flat, so then when it hits the deck, it shoots on. You're covering the same yardage in a much simpler way with less risk. Is that clear? Does everyone grasp that? Yeah. Any questions so far? Please? Give me a break.
There was a feeling at one time though.
Anyone but mine. Anyone but mine.
There was a feeling at one time that if you hit it high, it covered more yardage, didn't it? Because it was taking longer and so forth.
Yeah.
And that most books were saying that. I mean, I read 3 golf books a week, that's why I've got such a good hand.
You're absolutely right if you did like for like full shot. A full shot that goes higher, and this is a myth ladies generally I have to battle with a little bit on this one. The perception is, well, if I hit it lower it's going to run further. Of course it's going to run further, but in theory there is more resistance on the ground than there is in here. So flight is generally always going to hit it further. The kicker of it being though, that if you hit your 7-iron 140 yards, it's probably because you hit it on back trajectory. I hit mine on that trajectory, so mine's going to carry on going for longer than yours. But if I'm hitting it high, so it spins and stalls and drops down, without getting too technical about it, it doesn't carry on its arc, it's only going to go the same distance. So the whole point of what we're saying here is by doing a half swing, you're not putting any spin on the ball for it to climb up. So it just is go on, get up the green or get down the fairway and roll. So you are right, like for like on a full shot, but you can cover the, David York vouched this the other day, didn't it? You can cover the same yardage with pretty much a half swing, it just goes very differently in the way it runs out. Now during the summer, people were hitting it, who I did this with, were hitting it further by chipping it than doing full shots.
Yeah, take advantage of ground conditions.
Take advantage, use the ground, absolutely.
Obviously, when you're going into greens and you want control, then you can use your higher shot. But talking about sort of in between those shots, in between where you're laying up short of the green, use it. You use the knockdown shot. Or what do you call it?
Bunt
shot.
Bunt shot.
Yeah.
If Tom, just hit the point. If the shot means you have to fly, there's something in the way. You don't now have another option. The shot is dictated. You've got to go through the air. That's fine. You go through the air. But if there's nothing in front of you, you really want to be able to get to the point and go, well, I could do this, I could do that, or I could do that. Which one of those am I most comfortable is going to achieve the objective? I don't care whether Bob next to me, who's only a yard from me because we teed off the same, is going in with a 7-iron. I'm going to get a 4-iron and just chip it. If that's how you feel you're going to achieve the greatest chance of hitting that target, then do it. Don't get drawn into what everyone else does. It really is where everyone gets wrong, because we have this perception of golf being dunk up. Dunk up. It's not. It really isn't.
That's why this hole is a great example, because if you're on the right here, you only have the one option because of the bunker. If you hit left here, it rolls into this bunker. But by coming from the left, as we're saying, is a good example, a good way to play it. You have the option.
Your dispersion was great.
Yeah, so you from here, you could play the bunch shot if that was your most efficient shot, or you could play the high shot if you want to land on the green. It's completely up to you. But by coming from that angle, you have both options.
And remember, that's the point. There isn't a right or wrong. If you want to play it through the air from this, play it through the air. But play it through the air because it's the one that's right for you, not because you think that's what should happen. And I think that's the thing. There are times when I would chip a 6-iron from just short of the bunker on the left on the second. I'd chip a 6-iron, land it 40 yards short of the green runner. And people go, but you can get there with an 8-iron. Yeah, I can, but it's not the shot that fits in my mind for going up that green. If the pin's at the back of the green, why would you ever try to throw the ball onto the green? Surely logic states, well, if I get it running from just short of the green onto the green, runs up the green, if I overdo it a bit, it's only just trundling over the back, the light rough at the back will snaggle it up. If you throw a ball to the back of the green, one bounce, big bounce, that's gone. You've just made life so difficult for yourself. Use the advantages you've got. But I'm sure, it keeps going back, you can only do that if you've done analysis and accepted and acknowledged what you can and can't do.
Who, when playing into the wind, hits the ball harder? Who stands and think, I'm into the wind, I've got to hit it harder?
Everyone.
I remember I played around the golf with a +3 handicapper. This was when I was back playing county golf, and he stood on the tee into wind. He stood on his golf ball, made it sit below the ground. I thought, what the hell was he doing there? But that was all just to reduce spin, keep it low, and I thought that was really impressive. And then I don't do that because it's hard to get the bottom of the ball, but he was quite a steep hitter anyway. But it was really impressive, and that's just him playing. He grew up in Scotland on windy course. That's him just controlling his ball.
Well, if you think on that basis, the harder you hit a ball, if you strike it well, which obviously the chances of that are slim because you're hitting it harder, but if you strike a ball well, harder, it spins more. So it climbs more. If it climbs more, you've just defeated the object of playing the shot into wind. So what you should do is play a very soft, what we call a dead arm swing, where you're not putting a at the bottom in. So you put a very dead, quiet arm, so you still fire the body in here. So you are pushing the ball forwards, very little spin on the ball, goes through the wind, doesn't get affected, and you're far more in control. Because the other thing about wind you've got to remember is there is no such thing as backspin. There is, all balls have spin. That's the only way a ball can go near. So if a ball is spinning like that, okay, that is backspin, but it's spin. Now if you're hitting a slide, so all that's happened is, I know we've talked about this before, and Lee's very good with his playing wings. Well, do play. So if you're going to slide, all that happens is that same spin tilts. So now that ball bends. The same spin this way tilts, so it bends that way. So any spin you put on the ball accentuates that against the wind. It's madness to stand there and go, I'll just track one club longer. Get 3 out and chip it forwards. Just, unless there's a bunker in front of the green or something, and you've got to do it. I appreciate that, but you have to recognise here, apart from the ninth, where's there anything in front of any green? There really isn't. You also will probably recognise, if you think back to both courses, how clever are the design? Most greens are at an angle. Most greens on both courses are at an angle. Now the green itself might be fairly round, but the bunkering means the green entrance is at an angle. So you've got to think about that. You've got to, actually, I'll be better. Look, I think the best one of that is third on the Wanderbury from the point of view. If you ever go beyond the front third of that green on the third on the old. If you ever go beyond the front third of that green with your shot into the green, you've not really thought it through. Because that green sits at that angle with slopes that fall off that way and 2 bunkers. So you're always going to cross the front of the green. So hit it to the front of the green, which is your biggest area, before it narrows on the angle, if you get what I mean, yeah? Hit it to the front of the green, 2 putt, walk away, move on. It's only if, ironically, you carved one a bit right, got away with it, you go, oh, look at my line up the green now, I've got a great line up the green. But generally the hole's taking you that way, and there's not a lot you can do about it. There's trees and a big bunker, so you've got to go that way. But ironically, again there, the better and further you hit your tee shot, if you're going for it too, the better and further you hit the tee shot, the harder the next shot. You're better off being 30 yards further back and going up the green than you are going, crikey. So if you can't reach that green in 2, go as far left as you dare, go as far right as you dare up to the bunker that's 30, 40 yards short of the green. Now you're staring right up the green. As long as you carry the bunker in front of you, you can just bundle it onto the green. You don't have to hit a great shot, you can just get it running onto the green.
You mentioned the short game in your last tutorial. It was very interesting. The winter.
Not quite sure.
You got on the green and you mentioned 2 yards.
Yeah, land the ball 2 yards on.
We went through a 9, etc.
Yeah, percentages, yeah.
And the pitching. And that made sense. What do you do now with winter in these courses? From 40 yards, 50 yards. Should we be changing the club we use?
Actually, really good question. I'd have to say I've never been at a place where I'd do less changes than here. Because we're so dry.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make that big a deal
No.
here, I don't think.
No.
There are a lot of courses where you could land a 5-iron on the green and it's going to go and it just not do anything, so it's not going to run, so you have to fly a little bit further.
Yes.
But round here, I really don't think so. The only thing I would say is when you run them round here, especially on the old course, there are an awful lot of little false fronts. So you can't land a ball in the false front. Remember when you chip, and I know we said this before, never land a ball on the slope. Unless there is nothing else to that bit. Never land a ball on the slope. Always make sure a ball has bounced twice before it hits a slope. So, for instance, the first on the old course, you either need to land that 30 yards short of the green, so that it's gone big bounce, small bounce, now running like a putt and then runs up the slope and onto the green, so it's false front, or you fly it all the way to the heart of the green. You can't land that on the front of the green, because it'll just come bundling back down. So once again, you've got to look at the situation and go, but I've always used the phrase, if you're going to run it, run it. If you're going to flight it, flight it. Don't get caught flighting it with a running club or running it with a lofted club. The biggest mistake I see is somebody does go for the option of running it, but they use a pitching wedge. You just go, well, you're using a lofted club, it's not going to run. Make sure you use a club that is going to run the ball. But also look at the flag position. If the flag's at the back of the green, you can really run out the green. If the flag's at the front, you can actually be a bit bolder because you've got a lot of green to work with past it. So if you fly it to the flag and overdo it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But use the green to the best of the advantage there as well. Yeah? Now, just a second one on the second on the Wanderbury and then we'll move on. But if you can, well, it doesn't matter what your handicap standard is, when you stand on the second tee of the Wanderbury, you need to look where the flag is. Because if the flag is in the very seldom place of back left, which happens but very infrequent, then your second shot, if you're laying up, needs to be a little further right than it would be if the flag is in the usual place, which is middle to right, because the angle to the flag has changed. So you need to think ahead and think, okay, so if I need to be, if the pin is back right on the second, and you're going for it in 3, let's say, your approach shot needs to come from quite considerably over in that sort of, the little half moon over to the right, that's the big bulge. because now you're just going up that green again. But if the pin's middle left, you can be more in the middle of the fairway so that you're running up. It's just look ahead. Now I know you'll all sit there as well and go, God, I'm not that good to do. But you have to strategise. Whether you pull it off or not is a different thing, isn't it? You have to strategise and do it. But you can see we haven't given you any techniques to change anything other than your processes and thought processes. That makes sense? Anything you boys want to?
I just wanted to talk a bit about pre-shot routine. So you see all of you go onto the first tee, and you have a routine. You do the same thing every single time. You see some funky stretches on that first tee, but you'll be doing that, and it may be like a 2-minute routine that until you've taken your first tee shot. You go into your bag, you take your glove out, you take your ball out, you've got your tee peg, you maybe first or second or third tee off, whatever it is. There is a routine that you will go through. How many of you do that on the range? How many of you go through that process on the range? We'll happily stand on the range and hit 30 drives in 15 minutes, okay? Not one of you will take your glove off, start your routine again. However, so many people worry about their first tee shot. So many people worry about your first tee shot, but you've never practiced it. Yeah. Nobody's ever practiced their first tee shot. We expect to be on the first tee shot and hit a great shot because we hit 30 balls in 15 minutes. Nobody practiced the routine. So just a really interesting thing to think about. It may just be your first 5 balls that you do in your practice routine. You take your time, go through your routine, tee peg, ball, glove, hit the shot. Then when it comes to the first
even
tee
take
shot,
that further and play the hole on the first.
Exactly.
Imagine where you'd hit the tee shot, then I'll hit a hybrid or whatever.
Yeah, and you can go through that. That is efficient practice. That is practice that you can really take to the course. Okay, so think about when you're on the range, it becomes very easy just to hit golf balls, and that's your practice done. Make it so it relates to the golf course. At the end of the day, we're trying to better our game out on the golf course. Okay, efficient practices and relevant practice is
absolutely
super important.
I think it's also important to keep your pre-shot routine. If you've had a bad shot or a bad hole, we just want to go up to the next shot, let's just hit it. No, so start again, take emotion out of the golf shot and start again and stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. What Lee was saying earlier about a birdie putt and a double bogey putt, all of you will go through your routine on the birdie putt. Very few.
You're probably frustrated by the time you get to the double bogey putt.
So emotion and mindset then comes into it. So if you will have a routine, it's just practicing that routine. Okay, it's not changing it, just practicing it.
Something I think is hugely important is to 3 factors when you're practicing. Number 1, recognise when you are practicing and when you are warming up. They aren't the same. Everyone thinks you practice before you go out to play. No, you don't. What you're doing is, you're supposed to be doing, is loosening up, feeling strike, feeling balance, feeling rhythm in order to think, yeah, I'm ready to go play. Something like Tom, standing there and thinking, okay, so I'll play the first. I've actually done something to loosen me up, ready to go and play that golf course. Practice is when you have an objective to come and change something you're working on. Don't ever practice to grain something in randomly. That's not practice, that's hitting balls. If you go to a driving range and you hit more than 30 balls in half an hour, you're not practicing, you're hitting balls. You need to think when you go to the practice ground, I'm going there today because I'm working on my strike. Or I'm going there because I've worked with Tom on my left wrist at the top of the backswing. That's what you're going for. You do shots, you do practice swings, yeah, that's the feeling Tom told me. Yep, I think I've got that. You hit a shot, and do you know what, if that was me, I wouldn't even look where the ball goes, don't care. I think that wasn't the same as my practice swing. So let's do it again. Practice swing, practice swing, practice swing. No, come on, that's not the thing. That's what I want to feel. Right, that's how many times you see tour pros, they're always doing things. Then you think, I think I've got the feeling, right? Ball, close but not right. The ball is just a means to tell you whether or not you're getting close to what you're working on. It isn't the practice. Must never be the practice. Because that's just hitting balls. You're not getting feedback, you're not working on anything. The drills is the way that you feel and change. Hit a ball to see if it's affecting what you're doing. The second thing I'd say, the third thing on that is one was warming up, one was practice. make a promise to yourself. I'll tell you this now, the first 5 to 10 swings, especially the older you get, the first 5 to 10 to 15 swings you make of a day have just set the tone of your swing for the day. So we all walk onto the practice ground and go, oh, blimey, just wafting away like that. You've just ruined your swing for the day. That's gone. You're now going to spend the rest of the day recovering your golf swing. What you should do when you get on the practice ground, you should have stretched beforehand, but we'll bypass that. But what you should do is do a couple of little swings to think, yeah, that's the thing, I'm balanced, I'm turning into a left heel, whatever it is you do. Yeah, I'm starting to get, blind, I'm still a bit stiff. Well, what's the point of hitting the ball? You haven't got to a point where you've got to swing it. When you've made 10 to 15 swings and you start thinking, yeah, that's now starting to feel like my swing, your first ball now has a chance. You've set your swing for the day. You've got a chance of that. But if your first 3 shots were, God, blind, you've had it. You've had it. I tell you now, you've had it because A, you mentally have told yourself that you're not hitting it very well. B, you haven't warmed up. So therefore, if you haven't warmed up and you think about the golf swing, you're making a stretching motion. If you haven't warmed up, you're going to go, oh, that'll do. Because it's natural instinct, isn't it, to go for the easy option. So now your downswing's changed. The way you strike the ball's changed. The way you come into the ball has changed. The shape of your shot has changed. So always make sure before you hit a ball, you've worked on an action that feels like the swing you want to do. When you've got to that point, right, now I'll hit a couple of balls. Gently warm up, hit a few just to build into the swing and speed, and then go from there. That is a structured way to get yourself going before you go out on the golf course. Then, as Tom said, take it further and think, okay, I feel I'm swinging it okay now, so yeah, first tee, never like that first tee. I'm going to try 3-wood rather than drive up, so yeah, that's a good option. You're now walking into the first tee thinking, got a chance now. You're not walking into the first tee thinking, slicing it on the range, I was topping it, I was standing it, I couldn't strike it. You're giving yourself, everything we've done is about giving yourself the greatest chance to achieve your best scores. And the fundamental of everything at the end of the day is get rid of the rubbish. Get rid of the rubbish. Not one person in this room, without being rude, is good enough to care about their good over their rubbish. It's only when you're the likes of a Nick Schmitz and Dave Quinney, they can start thinking, well, my good could probably overtake my rubbish here, so now I can up my ante. But for every birdie you make, you go, yes! All it takes is one bogey, it's undone it, hasn't it? And you're going to make bogeys unless you can whittle those down.
I see the logic of that, because your strategy sometimes has to be different for a Stapleford as a medal. So I understand absolutely the medal. On Stapleford, your drive's gone into a bush. Check out onto a fairway, and actually you've got to do a brilliant shot and you're going to get a point. And it doesn't matter if you get naught, you get naught.
Yeah, I think the only time it will change is when there's nothing left in shots.
Yeah.
So in a situation like that, if you were playing a medal play, you just get through the hole. In a situation like that, yes, you're standing there going, well, I might as well go for it because I've got to get it on the green, hold the putt for a point. But generally no, because if you're playing, if you're playing reasonably consistent, your average is your 2 points, and that's generally where you're going to be at. The only time I'd ever say you genuinely change your strategy is match play. Although those who've been on my ladies, Jean Wilkinson will vouch for the fact that I normally say forget about that. Match play is about not losing, it's not about winning. You you don't win a match play, you just are the one that didn't lose it. That's the majority of match play tactics, isn't it? So if you make sure that you don't gift holes to somebody, I promise you're going to win, unless you come across somebody who really has a good day. So by standing there and hitting a fabulous shot and then thinking, I can get on this in 2 today, and taking on the shot and you carve it into a bush, you might as well have just gone, there you go, have a hole. Which is a pointless exercise. Make them win it. Make them win it by being boring and plod and be boring. Once again, unfortunately, if you watch telly and you watch match play on telly, that's not what they do. But they're not you. They've got to make birdies to win holes. They don't lose holes, they win holes. Yes, you're right to a degree, but I would say unless you're forced to change your strategy, keep to your strategy. So I think lose the rubbish, improve those 8 things that I listed on there. So think to yourself, can I strike it? Can I hit tee beggar? All those things, which means you will be a better golfer straight away. Irrelevant of what swing you've got, you'll be a better golfer. Create as many possible options as you can in order to gain the greatest chance of achieving your objectives. And practice efficiently and effectively based on your weaknesses in order to bring those up as a strength. And then you can change your strategy as you go along. Anyone who's been with me for more than a year and a half will probably recognise that their strategy's changed as we've gone through, because as you improve, your strategy changes. You just adapt to your new abilities. A shot that you used to stand in fear and think, oh my God, I can't get over that bunker, as we talked about it, you probably look back and go, I can't remember the last time I would have thought about not getting over a bunker. So therefore, your strategy doesn't need to be about that failing, does it? Your strategy has changed. So analyse, acceptance of what you're doing, or acknowledgement of what you're doing, change your strategy, and then act upon it. Make sense? Yeah? Guys, anything to add to that?
That's good, yeah.
So the first lesson ought to be on the course to
I have to say,
out.
I do a lot more course lessons than I've ever done before.
Yeah.
And I would say, and I'm going to throw something, if those of you who've been here before now, I've never ever said this, I've never told you to come for a lesson. But I would say, every one of you in this room, David, would you back? Yeah, every one of you in this room, if you had an on-course lesson, you would be blown away by how the way, Yada's nodding, you'll be blown away by how what you do is making golf harder than it ever needs to be. Simplify, make it comfortable, do it. But unfortunately, I can't generically do that because, as we've discussed, you're different than you're different. So yes, if there is one lesson, 2 lessons that are going to make you a better golfer, it's always going to be short game. That will always be a given. And course strategy, because course strategy, without changing one other thing, just by me saying go up there and do that, you will be a better golfer. So it's a great way of moving your game forwards. Very much so.
Do you think, it doesn't apply to me,
Of course.
but do you think that older people, do you think that older people try and have too full a swing and lose their power through it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you would err on the side of a shorter backswing and through.
More efficient.
Absolutely. Majority of golfers do what's known as casting. Majority of golfers hit slices, or it's not actually slices, we won't get into that, but block cuts. Majority of golfers leak it left to right. And the reason why majority of golfers leak it left to right is by the time they've got to the ball, in fact, Lee, show us a good impact. This is the reason why amateurs generally move it left to right. Good impact is his hands have outrun the club head. Period. That means you've got a strike and some quality strike, and you are in control of the club. The reason why most amateurs slice it is because on the way down they do what's known as casting, because they hit from the top. So that's the big power. By the time you've got here, you've lost everything, and the shaft gets into, exaggerated, but a negative position, which becomes a scoop and a weakness. So yes, the bigger the swing, the more chance you will of casting, and then you won't outrun the club. So you look at the irony of golf over the last 10 years. Short hitters used to be deemed as accurate, long hitters were always a bit wild. That was what it was. Look at it now. The longest hitters on tour are the straightest hitters on tour, because they're not manipulating the club face in any way, shape or form. So the only variant is a little bit of left to right, a little bit right to left. They're not doing any of this. And that's because golf swings, you look at John Rahm. John Rahm's backswing. John Rahm's backswing doesn't get beyond that. JB Holmes doesn't get beyond. Monumentally crunching the golf ball. They're all getting into these positions here, so that they're now ahead. As soon as you put the hinge like a Luke Donald into it, you're inevitably going to try and recover the hinge. You come over the top, scoop, lose your power, left to right, weak shot. So yes, I believe you're better off making a good coil to the point at which your body says no more, whatever that is. With my neck these days, that's about there. That is a solid backswing I can unwind from. If you get to the point where your body says no more and then you go, but I'll add a bit more, now you're making an arms action. And genuinely, who here can make 90-degree shoulder turn? Let's be honest. Who can make a 90-degree shoulder turn? Probably Skilts and Yarma, aren't they? But because a 90-degree shoulder turn is hard work. It really is hard work. So if you're only making a 70-degree shoulder turn, that's your backswing, you're in control of it. Now you can power on from it. So absolutely. Shorten the backswing, soften the shaft, but that's a different thing, and you get more flight and height. Anyone else? Any other questions? Anything anyone wants to clarify? No? Have I bored you so that you're all dazed and lost?
Can I say a big thank you to Harry and the boys on behalf of you all. I'm totally motivated, I'm raring to go. Harry was my Rudolph Nureyev on my lady captains day. So he needs to work on his arabesque and pointing his toes, I told him yesterday. But I think we've all got a lot to learn and hopefully we'll move forward and can't wait to go, to be quite honest. Yeah. Okay, so thank you boys.
Before you dive, there is a sheet here which I printed out so you can all take a copy of it, which is, it's just a way of analysing what you do. So where you miss the green, it's not quite the H frame, but it's a similar sort of thing. So basically you can work out, I missed it left off the fairway, I missed the green to the right, I chipped on and had 3 putts, etc. So it's just a copy. Now, obviously you go and scan that or whatever you want to do with it and then use that, but there's a copy here for all of you if you want to come and grab one, so at least you've got a way of referencing what you're doing. But what I would say is from all of us, thank you very much for coming. Hopefully that will have an impact on your games, but also hopefully you realise, crikey, without us saying you need to get in this position or you need to do this or whatever, it's just ways of changing the way you think and practice based on what you've got today. So simplify what you're doing. So hopefully you'll move on.